Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, Mike Brey, the longtime Notre Dame head basketball coach, has decided to retire or step down from Notre Dame after this season. It's kind of sad to see because Mike Brey had a great career at Notre Dame. He had a lot of great moments, leading them to a lot of NCAA tournament wins and a lot of great seasons. But the last few years have been a struggle for Notre Dame basketball. And after an 84-71 loss earlier this week to Florida State, Notre Dame is now at 9-10 this season, and Mike Brey has decided to retire from Notre Dame at the end of the season because of the fact that Notre Dame is no longer playing really good basketball. And you can look at this situation one or two ways. Mike Brey probably understands that Notre Dame would eventually fire him if he was continuing to not win. So maybe he wouldn't have been fired after this season, but if he has a couple more bad years, he might have been fired. And I don't think Mike Brey wants to be fired, and I don't really even think Notre Dame wants to fire him. So he's going to step down now because they're really struggling. And again, it's sad to see because he had a great career at Notre Dame. It's just the last few years, he has not had a lot of success. And you look at Mike Brey's record as a head coach. He started out his college basketball coaching career at Delaware, and he did a really good job with the Blue Hens. You see, he made 2 NCAA tournaments, and he made it to the NIT. And Notre Dame decided to hire him after the success that he had at Delaware. In his first season at Notre Dame, he led them to a 20-10 record, and they made the tournament to the round of 32. And Notre Dame was in the Big East at this time, so it was a much different environment than it is now in the ACC. But then in his second year, he took him to the tournament again, and then his third year, he took him to the Sweet 16. And then they had 3 struggling years in a row where they went to the NIT. But then he took him to the round of 64 again, and then the round of 32. And then he had another season in the NIT. And then his last 4 years that Notre Dame was in the Big East, he took him to the tournament every single season. And then after 2013, Notre Dame went to the ACC. And his first year in the ACC, they struggled. But then in his second season with Notre Dame in the ACC, he took him to the Elite Eight. And then he took him to another Elite Eight. And then he took him to the round of 32. But then after that, things started to go downhill in 2017-18. They went to the NIT. They missed the tournament the next year after that. And in 2019-2020, Notre Dame probably would have missed the tournament, but the virus canceled the season anyway. And then they missed the tournament again. And then last year, they were able to make the tournament behind the success that they had with Blake Wesley at guard, and they went to the round of 32. But so far this season, they've really struggled, and they're more likely going to miss the tournament again, and Mike Brey stepping down. Now, what led to the downfall of Mike Brey at Notre Dame? Now, this is a really complicated question because there's a variety of factors of what could have gone wrong. Because you could say, well, going from the Big East to the ACC made it tough on Mike Brey and Notre Dame, but he had some of his best success early on when they were in the ACC, when they went to 2 Elite Eights. And he had a lot of success when they were in the Big East as well, but he also had some bad years in that conference. So I think the Big East and the ACC are both tough in basketball, so I don't really think that the move to the ACC really hurt Mike Brey. Another factor that you could look at is because he's been their head coach for 23 seasons, and sometimes when you're a head coach of a team for a long time, that sometimes toward the end you could lose your touch a little bit. You look at a guy like Gary Patterson, the head football coach for TCU for 20 years. He had a great career at the Horned Frogs, but in his last few years being the head coach of that football team, TCU really struggled, and he decided to retire because he knew things weren't working out as well. So it could have been with Mike Brey possibly that he lost his touch a little bit and was just not coaching as hard or as well as he did before. Another reason is that Notre Dame's a basketball team, unlike their football team. They just do not have as much talent as a lot of other teams do in college basketball. Notre Dame, even when they were winning a lot of games with Mike Brey, a lot of their players did not go to the NBA. They only have a few players in the NBA right now. But players like Matt Farrell and Bonzie Colson and Rex Pfluger, you can go on and on. Notre Dame had so many players on those teams that went to the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16s from 5 or 6 years ago that are not in the NBA but had a lot of success. And sometimes you can strike gold with players like that. And Mike Brey, he was really coaching them hard, and they were listening to him, and everything was going well, and they were shooting the basketball at a high level. And Notre Dame was able to win a lot of games over the Dukes and the North Carolinas in the ACC that have way more talent. But it's hard to sustain that. Because you even look at Jim Boeheim at Syracuse. He's been their head coach for over 40 years, and he's had a lot of success at Syracuse, but they don't have a lot of talent either. In the last few years, they've been struggling, but no one's really saying that Jim Boeheim's not a great coach. He just doesn't have a lot of talent. And unfortunately, in this day and age, especially when you're an older coach who's been coaching for a long time and the other teams in your conference know your scheme, then you just don't win as much. And I think that kind of was part of the problem with Notre Dame. When they first came into the ACC, they were new to the conference. The teams in their conference were not used to their style of play. Notre Dame had players that were just so gritty. They might not have been super talented, but they could shoot the basketball really well. But now that they've been in the ACC for a while, a lot of the teams have figured out their style of play, and a lot of teams play the way that Notre Dame plays as well. A lot of teams are shooting the basketball at a high level, so it kind of takes away from you being the best at what you do, because now the teams that have a lot of talent are playing the exact same style of basketball as Mike Brey does at Notre Dame. It's just very tough to compete with. So I think it could be a variety of reasons for why Mike Brey started to struggle at Notre Dame. I don't think it necessarily is that he's a bad coach now and that he can't coach anymore. And I'm not saying he's going to get a new head coaching job or not. He could be retired and done with basketball after the season. But I just think a lot of reasons, like him going to the ACC and having instant success, but then the other teams possibly could have figured out the way that they play, and that's why they started to lose more. The fact that Notre Dame never had a lot of talent in basketball, but they found ways to win with their style of play. And Mike Brey was in his prime as a head coach, and his players listened to him. And now today, they have some talented players, but it's just not working out. There's just a disconnect. Maybe Mike Brey is not at the top of his game like he used to be. And the fact that maybe his players just don't fit or as cohesive as those guys that he had 5 or 6 years ago. And it could be sometimes just fatigue. He has been their head coach for a long time. Like I said, you can look at coaches like Jim Boeheim, who's been struggling the last few years now at Syracuse, and you look at Gary Patterson as the TCU football coach. Sometimes in the last few years of your tenure as a head coach, you can really struggle. But Mike Brey, he realizes the writing's on the wall. I don't think he knows how to fix Notre Dame basketball right now. He's getting some talented players, but it's not enough to help him win a lot of games. And his scheme is just not really working right now. A lot of other teams have figured him out. They're just not able to win games. And just overall, the program is really struggling. And Mike Brey, he wants what's best for Notre Dame, and he doesn't want to get fired. So Mike Brey's stepping down and going to retire after this season, so Notre Dame can get a new head basketball coach and hopefully turn it around. But it is really sad to see, because Mike Brey had a lot of great moments as the head coach of Notre Dame basketball. It's really sad to see him go. I still think he's a really solid coach, but just a lot of factors, as I've already mentioned, could have been the reason why things started to go downhill toward the end of his tenure. And now Mike Brey is stepping down as the Notre Dame head coach, but he still had a really great career as the Fighting Irish head coach. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about Mike Brey stepping down as the head basketball coach of Notre Dame and what you think led to the downfall of his tenure at the Fighting Irish. And I will see you next time.